All right, mates, welcome back to the channel. JL Scott Fishing and Eats. Hope everybody is doing well. Today, we are into a new week, and that means we are going to do our update. We're going to revisit some of the areas that we talked about a month ago because the river's changed. Obviously, the river changes every day. That's why we love to fish rivers, why we chase smallies. The river's completely different, unlike your lake or your reservoir. No one's moving docks. Structure hardly ever moves. On a lake or reservoir. So in the river, it's completely different. So what we just experienced is we just saw on average, a 2-foot rise in our river system, the upper Potomac, between Point of Rocks, Maryland, and Little Falls down towards DC, below Great Falls, and all that. And what I try to tell people, a lot of times when I meet them at the ramps, I'm on the canal towpath access areas and all that, is that this section, the Piedmont section of the river, I think it mirrors more of the topography of Point of Rocks area, okay? With the descending river line, then a flat, then it flattens out, okay? I'm going to show you here on the map some areas in which it flattens out. And in these areas, that's where you tend to find lower water, lower level. Okay, and then it drops down a ledge, picks up some momentum, could be some deeper areas off the seam, some pool areas around. There's tons of these areas in these sections. And I'm telling you, mates, a lot of these areas are still relatively untapped, okay, by most anglers because they don't know they're there or the topography keeps them kind of at the mercy of the launch. And I'm going to show you that at the Pennyfield section going down. Now, if you are from Virginia, like I am from Virginia, originally grew up in Loudoun County, which is this area right here you're looking at, Sterling, Virginia, right there, Lowe's Island, where most people are familiar with Trump National, the golf courses there, Lowe's Island, you've got Algonquin Park is upriver from Lowe's Island right here. Let's see if I can pull that up a little better. Near 10-foot island. Okay, here's Algonquin. Regional Park Boat Ramp. Pretty much used by most people in Loudoun County to access the Potomac River. Okay, there are some other areas, some other ones. For the most part, no one's going and using Great Falls on either side. That's pretty much kayaking. You can. I mean, there's some different areas you could fish down below Great Falls. But for the most part, in this section, the Piedmont section, Algonquin on the Virginia side is pretty much used more than most. There's Riverview, I think, a little further down as well. But most of the people I talk to use this ramp, okay? And this is a really, really good section, all right? Especially if you're running what I call a high-end branded kayak, okay? You're running a Hobie, you're running an Old Town, you're running a Jackson, okay? Because it's deeper water. It tends to be deeper than, we're going to move downriver below Seneca Landing, okay? Everything above Seneca Landing, in my opinion, my experience, depending on situational water events, okay, tends to be deeper water for you, okay? Does not mean that you're not going to run into a stretch where if you've got a trolling motor, you're going to run into some little trouble, okay? I'm just saying, on balance, everything upriver from Seneca Landing, going out of Seneca Landing on the Maryland side, which is a boat ramp, jet boats go out, kayaks go out, big boats go out, okay? We'll go out there. Pleasure boats, the smaller pleasure boats, will go out of there. It's deeper water all the way across the Virginia side, all the way up, okay? For the most part. You're not going left out of that. Okay, kayak and canoe guys are going left out of the Seneca Landing from Seneca Creek into the upper Potomac. 9 times out of 10, you'll see kayakers go left and fish down towards the old dam. But most jet boats, most boats, John boats, most everything else is going upriver. Okay. Now, below the dam, Old Dam 2, I've had some interesting discussions in the last week, because some people refer to that area as Seneca Breaks. And I was just kind of curious, where that came from. Because that's not historical to me. Like, I grew up in Loudon. We did not call it that, okay? I've been on the Potomac River for 30 plus years. We didn't refer to it as Seneca Breaks. We referred to it as Blockhouse Run. We referred to it as Old Dam 2. And then moving to Maryland and coming on the Maryland side, they've got a totally different vernacular for these places than people on the Virginia side. It's kind of cool. The Maryland side tends to keep more of the traditional Indian tribal names and place names and island names that kind of go back generations all the way back, way back. Virginia side kind of adopts new names for islands, or changes names. So someone from Virginia may refer to an island by one name, but someone who's grown up on the Maryland side, they call that island something completely different, okay? And you find that a lot from Penny all the way down to Great Falls, okay? And so just keep that in mind. So when someone's referring to something as Seneca Breaks, that's vernacular that, maybe comes from, a guide or someone, an author or somebody like that who's written about the river. But you probably won't find that on the map. Okay, you're not going to find that on a map. Or maybe you find that on an old map. Okay, remember, a lot of this stuff got named out during the build out of the canal, right? It's George Washington's canal, right? And so it goes all the way up on the Maryland side. You also have a little Seneca Canal on the Virginia side as well. But it's just something that you want to keep in mind when people are referring to certain areas. Always keep in the back of your mind, it may have another name, okay? And so I refer to this area. So you got Algonquian from the Algonquin people. This section from there's a cut between there's 10 foot right there. You see that. Van Deventer, which that's another name, okay, that the island's called other names, okay? So just so you know that. You probably may not have ever heard of that name. But you've got, I think it's Harris. Is it Harris? Let's see what we got. I'm trying to remember what's Harris. Selden first. This cut right here, okay? This island, tribes occupied this island, okay? And if you go back and you look at some of that history, this was a prime tribal fishing area, okay, for the tribes of the Algonquin community, okay? And there's tons of tribes. If you go all the way down to the Potomac, you know what I'm talking about, okay? In that watershed, all those place names, Mattawoman, Piscataway, okay? All those Dog. It's called Dogue. Most people call it Dogue Creek. Well, that's from the Dog Indians, okay? All that stuff have their kind of relation to either the Algonquin or the Iroquoian tribal sets, okay? So just keep that in mind. A lot of the place names, okay? 10-foot Island especially comes from that. So you got the Algonquin Regional Boat Ramp right there. And now we're going downriver here, okay? So downriver. And I want you to keep in mind, here's Seneca Boat Ramp. That is a big boat ramp with a big parking lot, okay? You also have Riley's Lock, okay, which is kind of a little bit further, up from Old Dam 2, okay, and there's another lock at Old Dam 2. Now, this canal, C&O Canal Dam 2, see, it's not called Seneca Breaks, okay, on the map, but people use that vernacular, okay, which is fine, as long as everyone's on the same page of what we're talking about, because you can't just Google Seneca Breaks and figure out, okay, when someone's saying anything. So the people that are referring to Seneca Breaks are really referring to this area all in here that's basically a break. It is a break line of basically a ledge formed by the Old Dam 2 that used to be the old ford going all the way back, way back pre-Civil War. And you also had troops crossing the river in this area during the Civil War. And you'll see those signs on the Maryland side. Not sure on the Virginia side because it's been a long time since I've been. I left Loudoun County in the early 80s. So not sure if they've updated any of that. But on the Maryland side, along the towpath, you've got a lot of historical markers that address that. Rosner, all the different stuff. So you've got this Old Dam 2, okay? And more of the remnants of that dam are on the Maryland side than necessarily on the Virginia side. But I mean, it's still Maryland on that side of the river, by the way. So when we say the Virginia side, we just kind of mean over there. But parts of that area are still Virginia. And you'll get that all the way down from here down to Swains and below, where across the river is still Maryland too, technically. Okay. And you can see that here where the Maryland line is running right in through here, right? Okay. Technically, it's still Maryland. But your licenses reciprocate, so you're good either way, depending on where you want to launch it. So 2 weeks ago, we were at a foot. A week and a half ago, we were at a foot in this area. Okay? 1 foot water depth. All right? Now we're up to 3. Okay? If you look at Pointer Rocks, same thing. Pointer Rocks has risen 2 feet. Okay? Edwards Ferry has risen 2 feet. I think it's close to 5 feet now. A little over 5 feet. Okay? Was it 3? Which is low for Edwards Ferry, 3 feet. Again, the topography up that way, White's Ferry, Edwards Ferry, is very different. The river is very different than here. Down here is more in the Piedmont, lower Piedmont is more rocky. It tends to be shallower anyway, even normally, right? Whereas you go further up, you'll get in that stretch around the bend deeper water technically, usually 3, 4, 5 feet, okay? And then on up, and then at Pointer Rocks, it kind of levels out a little bit, okay? More rocks and all that from Brunswick to up that way, okay? So the rivers are in these sections are quite different and unique. And so you want to be prepared depending on where you're launching from. So for me, if I'm going back to home and going to launch from Algonquin, I'm going to take with me a lot of different baits that I'm taking if I'm launching from Pennyfield or I'm launching from Swains, okay, if I'm working that side of the river. Because topography is different, the water levels are different, the water clarity is certainly different, okay? You got to remember that in this area right here, you are picking up a lot of speed, okay, from the current. The current is picking up a lot of speed because of the drop, all right, and the momentum. It's physics, right? So it's picking up a lot of speed. So you're not going to get that blue, greeny algae in the summer a lot of times all through here because that water is just pushing it, okay? And sometimes if you do see it, it'll be down here adjacent to Pennyfield, okay, which is right here, in through here, because that algae gets pushed down to the sandbars and to the islands and then moves off to where there's less current flow, not in a seam any longer, and so it'll stay, okay, because it becomes stiller water. But along the main channel, you can just see it, okay, because the current's moving everything down, and you can just kind of see it's like a lane in the actual main river, okay, especially in this area right here, okay. And so if you're fishing from Algonquin and going in and around there, most of the guys I know that fish over there or guys that I know that launch from Seneca and head upriver to Algonquin area to fish on the Virginia side, which is good fishing, there are traditionally chatterbait, whopper plopper, topwater anglers. They are power fish. The guys that I know that fish up there, that fish over there, 9 times out of 10, they're power fishing, okay? That style of fishing is suitable for above Seneca Landing. Now, what I mean by that is that's not the only presentation, mates. You can throw the tube and deep, all that stuff still should be in your repertoire, okay? But I'm talking about the bite, okay? Chatterbait, whopper plopper, topwater, effective. In this stretch, below Old Dam 2, down through Pennyfield and down to Swains, a lot of times, because the water level is 2 feet or less during your summertime pools, those aren't nearly as effective. Does not mean that you can't catch fish, okay? Especially on a tube spinner. Absolutely. Wade fishing in the middle of the river, throwing a tube spinner. Number one but choice, July and August, okay? If you're wade fishing out in 2 feet of water, you can drop one. It's like a beetle spin, only with a tube on it, okay? It's not a real heavy frame, wire frame spinner bait, okay? It's a lot smaller profile. You know what I'm talking about, the old beetle spins, right? But it has a tube on it. Okay, you want to use that because you'll catch 30, 40 fish. Okay, and again, this area right here opens up to a little deeper water here coming out of Pennyfield. If you're going to head up, if you're going to make that hard, again, you're going against the current. Okay, and so that's important. So a lot of guys that have trolling motors, kind of make that run up, and then they lift their trolling motor up, and then they're fishing all in through here, and then they get out and they fish off the rocks, or they wade fish, they tether their kayak. That's the traditional thing. Is you're really good in your kayak or your canoe throughout this section to fish, and then once you reach the head, the headways of the islands, you got to make your decision. Okay, and this is why I'm telling you that some areas just are not hit as much as others, because they're kind of cumbersome or difficult to get to logistically because of your ramp options, right? So if you're launching out of Pennyfield, okay, right here, see if I can put this pin up. So if you're launching out of Pennyfield here and you go up, you can hit all this stuff. You can head straight north to Pond Island and fish below the old dam and get the smallies that are below the current on the outside of the seams and all that. It's going to be shallower water. There are some deeper pools. Or you're going to do this. You're going to come in through here and then work your way down this island. Now, the problem with that is a lot of people don't want, that's a long run. That's a long island. It's going to take you all the way down to Gladys, okay, more or less, okay, with an island at your left, keeping you from being able to, unless you take the cut that's right in here, the cut that's in here to, see if I can't move this out of the way. There we go. You're going to go down through here, and then it'll open up, okay? It'll open up here. You get fishing through these islands, but it'll open up, and then you're cut off, okay, from getting back to Pennyfield for a long while. And you're going to be going fighting the current back up if you're only using Pennyfield, okay? So if you got a car at Swains, this is the easiest one to do, mates. Two cars, two vehicles, or shuttle, or whatever, from Pennyfield to Swains, all going downriver with the flow of the river, working the islands in through here. And this is a stretch that does not get targeted a lot. And a lot of times the smallies, they get caught in here. Because if they go into here, they're not getting out, okay, until like down here. And that's a good area right here if you're getting to this side to target that chute. There's some chutes down in the Swains area that go between the islands that are really good. They're shallow. You're going to be pulling your kayak up through there. But once you get on the other side, I've got pictures on my Facebook page that show the pools, okay, of the deeper water, 4 or 5 feet, okay, and 20 yards, 15 to 20 yard pool, 4 or 5 feet deep with a little bit of water coming off the main channel, feeding it, and they're sitting in there, okay, sitting in there chilling during the summertime in deeper water, okay, and you'll see that in these areas, like right in here, you've got a little bit, in here you've got one. That are behind islands, between islands that fill up with water, tend to be bigger boulders, been there forever, tend to be deeper water on the opposite side of those boulders. So it's just an interesting way that you could do it. And work your way from there, okay? And so that's how you have to like approach it, okay, when you're approaching these areas, okay, from this section alone. It provides you a lot of opportunities. So like I was saying, above Pond Island at the top, that's up here, above Pond Island, okay, that's Old Dam 2. So you got rock from Blockhouse Point to Elm Island. That's where the river basically flattens. Okay, it just kind of flattens a little bit. Okay, and so that also becomes a lot of area. You'll see guys sitting here. You'll see guys sitting here. Guys up in here that are hitting these avenues of which the water's coming down. That the bass may be coming down, or they may be sitting in here off these islands, ambushing everything. Okay, one of the areas right here is also another great little area that I always never miss an opportunity to hit, spend 15 or 20 minutes at, because there's structure down here, okay? There is structure in the river right in this area, okay, fallen timber that provides structure for the bass to hang out on, depending on what you'll see the structure. Like 2 weeks ago, you could see the structure. You could see the two trees sticking up out of the water, 3 feet out of the water, and they're like 20 yards. But normally they're underwater, okay, and they're in this section right here. So just keep that in mind. And how you make your run. Now, obviously, if you're going to make the run from Pennyfield up to Old Dam 2, you're going to find it a lot easier coming back down because you're going to have the current flow getting you back to Pennyfield, okay? Barring recently, you could be pulling your canoe or your kayak in through the creek, okay? Because there's been like 3 inches, all right? 3-4 inches. Now, in this section or along here and through here, you'll hear the guys. There's about, I've seen 2 or 3 different guys, a lot, that run what we call mud ruckers, right? They're john boats with a mud ruck outboard on them, which is a real shallow type, apparatus for your outboard that runs like right on top of the water, and they can run their john boats with an outboard through this section of the river versus your trolling motor that's down, however many inches into the water that's going to get beat up by the rocks. Okay, it's just, so that's the noise you'll hear a lot when you're looking around. They're going between the islands in really shallow water. And especially down on the Virginia side, a little lower, there's some significant catfish populations that those guys target. Okay, and so they can launch out of Penny because they've got a boat ramp there, and they, typically it's about a foot to a foot and, foot and a quarter, foot and a half. It's easy to get out into the main channel. It comes right in through here and puts you out on the channel, and they can run around here and then come down, or they can run down this way and work their way and pick the islands apart. And that's predominantly what those guys are doing. And so that's the noise that you'll hear sometimes looking around, because that noise is bouncing amongst the islands. So they're not in front of you and they're not behind you, but you can hear them. Because they may be on the other side of the island you're fishing, or they could be down and the noise just carries. But that's what that is. It's not jet skis. I've never seen jet skis. I've never seen any of that in this section of the water. It's mostly those guys. And they tend to all be pretty good guys. We'll chat you up. We'll come by, chat you up while you're kayak fishing, in those things. So that's really what, we're looking at fundamentally in that section of Pennyfield. Look at these island breaks all in through here, through the towpath. Now, a lot of people will wade fish this section and they never get to this section again, because they can, here's the towpath. So they can find a spot from the towpath, walk about a quarter of a mile, go through about 10 yards of trail, and they can be out on the water in 2 feet of water with rocks, fishing all through here. And you will see them when you're kayaking, okay? Especially this section right in here, because the towpath goes right up against the river, and basically 6 yards, they're in the river, okay? And they're fishing all through Sycamore Island, Watkins Island, Harris Island, all through here. And then for terms of wade fishing, it's just a lot of fun and a lot of experience. But here's where I was telling you before about if you make that run from Pennyfield, okay, around the island, and you cut the island, you cut Harris Island, and you come down here, okay, we'll widen this up a little bit, and I'm going to show you. You got that run, okay? You got that run shooting this gap right through here that almost nobody fishes, okay? All the way down, okay? All the way down. Let me clear that. Okay? See that? How that's kind of like internal islands all the way down here? You got all this in here to fish, but you're on the other side. So it's going to bring you all the way down to Swains, okay? Swains is at lock 21, okay? So when you shoot out of here, you're still going to have to go. There is a cut at Swains right here, You go in here, you can cut across. Now, a lot of times I have to carry my kayak through there, okay, because it's rocky and there's just 3 inches of water, okay? It's just faster just to get out of your kayak, tether your kayak, and pull it through. Typically, you're not going over rocks. You can stay in water. It's narrow, but you can stay in water. And you can shoot this right here straight across to Swain's Lock and get out. Campground at here. So it's an easy float. Now, you can pick these options because you can either stay on this side from Pennyfield and come all the way down, which is definitely higher pressured area. That's the normal run where people go. People leaving Swain's, kayak trips, canoe trips, people put in, okay, they're coming on this side, and if they're going up, okay, and so that's a lot more pressure than on this side, and certainly down here, okay, on the Virginia side, all right, and then you can get further down to Minnehaha Island right here. I mean, I've taken many a catch and cook session, many a take a lunch break off the end of this island right here, and then you've got Riverbend Park down here, and then further down you're heading towards Great Falls, okay, and that, which is crazy. That's whitewater, okay. I mean, there's no fishing along there, but you just got to be real careful to know what you're doing and know where you're going, so you're not ending up into that mess. Because there's certainly, Great Falls, the Great Falls Visitor Center here. There's been a little bit of controversy happening in our area because a really famous YouTuber put out a video, I guess, recently about fishing below this dam, and technically that's illegal. But he put out a video, and some other people after the video came out got ticketed for basically fishing the same area he was fishing. So again, don't always follow exactly what everybody on YouTube has to say. Like, you've got to figure it out yourself. Always look to see what the laws are. Always look to see whether or not it's a state, federal. That absolutely is the national park system. So they've got their own, their own laws that require, because this area is unsafe, like all the way down. Okay. It's not as bad right there. It's beautiful right there. It's shallow right there. But you slip on a rock in this area and you're out alone wade fishing, you could be toast. Like, there's no joke. Like, if you don't know what the water levels are, you don't know all that. So just pay attention to that. Usually the fishing is above. Legal fishing is above this line right here that splits the two islands, Olmsted and Con. Okay. But just be aware. People have followed people to doing crazy stuff, and then they're the ones who end up getting fined. Okay. And not the YouTuber who went in there and did a video. So just make sure you read the laws there for that from the visitor center, as well as, and again, just because there's nobody there or doesn't mean that you can just go out there and go fishing. Make sure that you understand everything. And if you want to go down there and fish that, you can drive. You don't have to drive. You can put in right there, for sure. And fish right there from the bank and all that. You can find that all on the national website for Great Falls Visitor Center. But yeah, so I mean, you have a lot of a lot of options, okay, when you're doing these, okay. And the reason why I'm doing this video today is the river is getting back to be where you should be okay. Like, you shouldn't be we were out of our kayaks 80% of the time a week and a half ago. Okay, you can see the videos on my Facebook page and on YouTube channel and on TikTok and Instagram. Beautiful, but it's a lot of work. Okay, you're going to extend a lot of energy because you're going to be pulling your kayak. And so a lot of people that talk to me about like, hey, I'm going to take my Hobie, I'm going to take my Old Town. No, you're not. Okay, good luck. That's a workout. You understand you're going to the gym because you're going to be pulling a 120-pound kayak. Okay, and I don't even know what you have loaded on it. That's without you in it. But how much gear are you taking? Okay. And so keep that in mind when you look at this, when you plan your trip out and you plan your float out, what the water levels are, what gear, understanding in this stretch, it's a great float, but it is a totally different kind of float than floating down from Brunswick to Point of Rocks, for example. Another good float. and the waters are completely different. All right, mates, make sure you like, follow, and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you next time.